Okay, hey guys, I'm Dave, back here for another week of Bible Conversations with
Tim.
Tim, my brother from another mother, and we are talking about Exodus, 16 to 20 this week?
16 to 20.
And so just as a real quick recap, the reason we're doing this is because as a faith community, church community, we are reading 5 chapters of Scripture, at least. Some are doing more, some are doing whatever. The goal is to get people in the Word. We're reading 5 chapters each week. And so Tim and I are getting together just to go through those 5 chapters and pull out 5, 6, 7 different situations that maybe need to be clarified to provide some context or some historical or some deeper theological research and information toward to help you as you're reading through these 5 chapters to give you a little more insight because the goal is formation and transformation. So not just to read the Bible for a checklist. So we're back again, and like we said, we're in Exodus 16 to 20, and it's an important section because now you've got God has rescued his people out of Egypt, out of slavery. He's taken them through the wilderness. Time and time again, he is showing himself, proving himself to these people, and time again, like almost instantly, it seems like they start to doubt and whine and complain. And so throughout these 5 chapters, basically the wilderness, this desert kind of experience that the people of God are going through is becoming an experiential classroom for the people of God and really a classroom for us as we're reading it. Because it's so easy to read this and point the finger at these people, and then we go to the bathroom and we look in the mirror and we realize, we're those people just, a couple thousand years later or a few thousand years later. So God is teaching his people how to live as a redeemed, rescued, freed people that are his. And so that is kind of the gist of the overview for this section. But the first situation we come to, Tim, is manna in the wilderness. So you want to just kind of unpack what's going on here?
Yes. So, we're out in the wilderness. You talk about a good classroom because it's a wilderness, but what else is out in the wilderness? Nothing. Not much. It's a good classroom for that. So, we had last with the bitter water, and God was able to provide them water. And now we've come up to... what are we going to eat?
I'm hungry. I'm hangry.
So they were hangry a lot. And what he does is it mentions quails too, so it gives them some meat. And then this manna that will come, every day for them. And that's to be able really to depend on him daily like that. And it's that faith.
Yeah, because he gives them some pretty specific rules over the manna, right?
Yeah, because don't go hoard up everything and keep it, because some did, and what was...
what just came to my mind as we're talking about this? Mm-hmm. Community Easter egg hunts.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know exactly.
If you're the older kid in your age bracket, you just know. You're scouting them out, and you're like, oh yeah. And you're just like tearing through, scooping up the eggs, chucking them in your bag, like getting way more than, there's some on the lower end of the age spectrum, they get like 1 egg, and... The crazy thing is they're probably satisfied that one egg, and you're not satisfied with your bag. Never. But anyway, yeah, that's like, he's telling them not to hoard too much, get what you can.
And the ones that did hoard, they found out, like I said, the next one is like worms and everything. So it's just provide just what you need. This is all you need right there.
Kind of like daily bread.
Uh-huh.
Lord's Prayer kind of stuff, right?
Exactly.
So get what you can get. Don't pitch a fit. And then the next morning... God's going to provide, except, we talked about this off camera a little bit, on the 6th day.
On the 6th day, he will give basically a double portion, because the 7th, he's going to start establishing the Sabbath in the day of rest. So on that day, you will have enough so you don't have to go out and work. So that's sort of setting that up. So, but it's that daily dependence like that. And it always arrives. It's not like, we're going to look up at the sky and see the manna come down. It's just, it's there. It's kind of like, I don't like a frost in a way, but it's kind of that frosted thing. I mentioned it tastes like Skyline chili. Everybody disputes that. Maybe throw some noodles in there. Then that's the closest thing. That's my personal opinion. But I think they're more like some kind of a cake thing, kind of sweet. So.
Bro, I'm a fan of Skyline.
But you're getting ready to throw me under the bus.
Skyline is not the top 100 foods that come to mind when I think of manna from heaven, bro.
Number one with the bullet for me.
There is zero chance in that.
Okay, maybe steak.
But to your point, it was something that they craved and became very dependent on God to provide day after day. And so why this matters is like literally, he had just delivered them from these miraculous things, freedom, got them out of Egypt, opened up the waters for them to cross, used the waters to kill the Egyptians, like continuing to provide. And a few weeks later, they're already complaining about hunger pains. God again provides the manna, and so why this matters is it's like their first real test of faith after being redeemed from Egypt, and so he's teaching these guys, and it's always easier in hindsight, right? Mm-hmm. Looking back, so our view of it, we can see it. They could not, just like we cannot see what we're going through right now. Sometimes God's teaching them that salvation from Egypt was not the end goal; it was the beginning of this trust relationship, a life lived by faith. And again,
by faith, and this he provides them manna throughout their time in the wilderness.
Yep.
Even everything that they've done, the idol worship, everything that's his faithfulness. And it's like you said, he's not a vindictive God. Everything after what they called him, how they doubted him, how everything. Every morning they wake up, they have that manna.
Yep.
For years until they go into the promised land. So
it's yes. It's crazy because, it's like I said it last week, I think the Stockholm Syndrome mentality of slavery in Egypt, basically conditions you toward just survival thinking, right? I need to get, just enough food to be sustained today. I need to, stay this active. I just need to one step in front of the other. One step. Forget tomorrow. Forget next week. Yeah. I'm just trying to survive the day. That's what slavery does to us. And so Egypt, here's the thing. It had become familiar. So even though it's oppressive and...
It's more comfortable than being out in the wilderness.
It is more comfortable because at least even in oppression, they knew what to expect. Mm-hmm. And so it's crazy to think about that, but they at moments had longed to go back to slavery and oppression just because it had the sense of being more certain, right? And so freedom, this newfound freedom that they're experiencing in the wilderness requires them to actually trust in God for that provision of manna. And, we think about that today, like we live in a free country. And yes, God bless USA and all that kind of stuff, yay. But the reality is that freedom, for those of us that are now we're getting 2-3 generations away from the World War II generation.
Yeah.
We don't even really necessarily comprehend what they went through. And it's grooming this culture of not only not understanding the freedom that we have, but then that freedom is also leading us to be spiritually
apathetic.
Yes, spiritually apathetic. And it kind of goes back to that documentary we've talked about before of this satanic lullaby, being over God's people because we like comfort.
Well, and you can point to everything that's modern comfort that we have right now as, like you said, that's how they're getting us. It's just getting us more comfortable. And there's not rations. I guess, like World War II, you hear about that, and, you had to sacrifice. There's no sacrifice. Whatever conflict's going on in the world, what has ever happened like that, gas prices spike, everybody freaks out.
Bro, we get mad when we have to ration watering our yard.
Exactly. So,
that's crazy.
Man, we are. Yeah.
All right, we got to roll.
Off that soapbox.
Yes. This thing points to Jesus because Jesus himself in John 6 calls himself the bread of life. And so, manna came from heaven. Jesus came from heaven. Manna sustained physical life for the people in the wilderness. Jesus sustains our spiritual life today. Israel needed manna daily, and we need daily dependence on who Jesus is. And so the key insight from this manna from heaven thing is that God often provides just enough for today's obedience rather than tomorrow's certainty. And so we need to remember that. Second situation is water from the rock, Tim. What did that look like?
So they run out of water immediately, like you said. So now you had the water at Mara. So
tasty cakes were a little dry.
But so they complained about water before, took care of that water. So now the manna. So naturally you're thinking, okay, so he's going to provide us water. How are we going to do that? But no, they can't do that. So, like you said, the tasty cake's a little dry. The quail, may have been overdone a little bit.
Yep. Set out in that desert heat.
Yeah. So then God instructs, and Moses is basically like, they want to stone me. These people are out for blood.
Why'd you do this? Moses even starts complaining to God. Why'd you do this? You're gonna get me killed.
Why'd you do this? So I mean, that must have been really kind of rough. And then God instructs him to strike the rock, and then the water flows out.
Yep. And so why this matters is that basically, can God be trusted when circumstances become difficult? Which that's kind of a rhetorical question, right?
Yeah.
It's crazy because they're asking, like, is God with us? And it's like right after the Red Sea. It's like all these things.
The pillar
man.
of cloud, the fire at night, everything you've seen like that, and it's that daily, like you said. People want to know going on instead of just the daily dependence that we want to have.
But that's so important. Like Scripture talks about that time and time again, right? Like that's. It's easy to think hardship can equate to like God not being there anymore. Like, hey, there's no water, man. God must not be here. But God's presence never leaves.
No. Ever.
We still, like, when we go through a storm, we're like, God, why have you left me out here to die? And it's not that God has left you out here to die. You've probably lost your. So here's the question. Like, we question God's presence rather than stopping to wonder if it's my expectations that have gotten out of alignment.
Yeah, because it has to be the expectations, because, like you said, He is not left. He's never going to leave us.
He's omnipresent, right?
He's not ever forsake us.
And in fact, again, like you look through James, you look in Peter, like there's several passages time and time again where it's the very wilderness experience that we need to go through in order to get to where God needs to use us for something else. And so it points to Jesus because, Paul in 1 Corinthians 10, like this rock becomes this kind of the symbolic picture of God's provision, of His presence, of Jesus sustaining His people. And even the cool piece that Israel is getting this life-giving water from a rock.
From a rock.
And then Jesus.
So you're saying a water snob like you would appreciate this water out of that rock?
Absolutely.
Okay, just checking.
Absolutely. I'm a well water fan anyway.
Well then, all right.
I see what you did there. Jesus provides living water to spiritually thirsty people. You think of woman at the well.
John 4, yeah.
He's continually doing this. And so difficulty does not automatically mean that God is absent, guys. Matter of fact, we got to be leery of a constant mountaintop experience because we just take it for granted. We've said that before.
Well, you don't want to live on the mountaintop. If you're continually somehow on the mountaintop, then you're not doing something right. Then something's going on.
Unless for some, divine reason that your perspective of being on the mountain is because you're in God's, will all the time, every day. And if you are, tell me.
Yeah, then write a book.
Tell me how to get there.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, number 3, the battle with Amalek. I like saying Amalek because I always used to call them the Amalekites. It's weird to...
Well, they are the Amalekites.
But it's like Amalek? Is that how you say that now? Or
Amalek.
Amalek. All right, well, I said it right the first time then.
Well, how'd you say it the first time?
I said Amalek.
No, I don't think you did. But
then anyway. I said Amalekites. What happens here, Tim?
So this is where they face their first military test. So they're out, and obviously, they haven't been trained or practiced a lot for that. So this is dependent on God, and Moses taps Joshua.
Eeny, meeny, miny, mo.
That's pretty much it. That's it. So he does that, but in this battle here is where Moses raises his hand, and anytime he raises his hand, then Israel's prevailing. When Moses drops his hands, the Amalekites go forward, and so in this sense, which this leads into, and I don't know if I'm hoping I'm not jumping ahead. So Moses is standing there. So you think there, and Moses is pretty old.
Got a staff in his
hand. And that's got to get pretty tiring after a while.
Yep.
Because the battle, it's not like you're shooting cannons and guns. It's sort of hand-to-hand combat like that. So it gets tired. So he drops it. So they're like, oh, help us, Moses. So that's where Aaron and Hur come in, and they set up. So it proves that that God will provide for that. But two, Moses as a leader can't do it on his own. You know, and we're going to get into that in a little while.
Yep.
So there is help there with Aaron and with her. So they come and help him keep his arms up, and then they prevail. So.
Yeah, this and again, we'll get into Jethro's advice in just a second for our next incident. But the main takeaway from this scene, crazy scene, like you think, like just your view, like you can literally like see which army is advancing.
Do you think he messed with them a couple times?
I don't know, man. I mean, we talked about this off screen, but that like parody show, The Promised Land,
on YouTube,
on YouTube and Angel Studios is like really cool TV show if you guys want to kind of see Exodus unfolding from an office, the TV show The Office kind of scenario where they're like talking to the camera and it's like this, it's really quirky and hilarious, but there's this like scene where it's really it's like air traffic controller scene with Moses trying to keep his arms raised and getting tired and then being like, I give up and all this kind of stuff. Anyway, all that to say, no one person carries the entire mission. Doesn't matter of the title or the role or even the gifting. We need each other. It's a picture of the priesthood of all believers. It's a picture of Paul's analogy of the body in the New Testament. It's the set apart ones, the ecclesia, the church, not based on this American or even like modern view of leadership and hierarchy.
Yeah,
we need to kick it on its side.
Get him to the church and get him to the preacher and let him.
Yep. That ain't it. Jesus is the ultimate intercessor. I'm not him. You're not him. Mm-hmm. We need each other. All right. So the next scene comes out of that is like Jethro sees what's going on here. And so in Exodus 18, he gives this like leadership advice.
So Jethro is Moses' father-in-law.
Yep.
So, and if you think about it, Moses spent a good time of his life, that 40 years in the wilderness, because he married and had sons. So he's working for Jethro. It talks about how, like I said, it sort of came to be.
Pretty
like
tight
that.
Connection there.
So Jethro, shows as a priest. Interesting, because he's a Midianite, and I know there's a reference to what God did, what he saw God do in Egypt. And he said, "Truly, this God is greater than all the other gods." So
he's like at least curious.
At least curious, and I think in that one, did he go back and like say evangelize like that because he sees the power of God? But just what he does is he's bringing Moses' wife and son-in-law and sons, Zippo and the two boys, back to Moses, and they come and they have the bow down and the greeting and everything, and then.
So what happens here? Like he sees basically.
Well, and he talks, how's it going? And Moses is like, we do this, basically meet with people from sun up till sundown, because the people come to me with their problems, even though the people want to stone me half the time, they still want me to have this dispute.
How many people?
Million
plus.
600,000 men.
Everybody bringing their junk to Moses.
Well, you think about it. You go from Egypt in this system that you have in their one way to now out in the wilderness, and it's like so-and-so over at, the Naphtali camp.
They took my chicken.
They took my chicken. They dug a well too close to something right there. So
can you imagine? So Jethro's hearing all this, and he's like, dude, what was that passage that he's like, man, you're going to kill yourself.
Yeah, he says, I think 18, verse 16, when they have a dispute, they come to me, and I decide between one person and another, and I make know the statutes of God and his laws. Moses' father-in-law said to him, what are you doing? What you are doing is no good. You and the people with you will certainly wear yourselves out, for this thing is too heavy for you. You are not able to do it alone.
And so basically, this is a very common problem for us today, with great intentions. Even like if you're in any kind of leadership position. So if you're a mom, you're a leader. You're a dad, you're a leader. Your husband, you're a leader. Your wife, you're a leader.
Yeah.
Not to mention all the job type positions as well. And we confuse this responsibility with like we're supposed to do everything. We confuse faithfulness with this idea that I've always got to be available. And we confuse calling with like this control thing, and we're just wearing too many hats. And Jethro is like, hey, what are you doing?
Yep.
It's not going to work. And so here's the thing is like Moses, with the greatest of intentions, like he's coming around now. He's like really trusting God. He's trying to be obedient. He's not making excuses like he was
he's
before.
growing, you could tell.
Great intentions, wants to be obedient. to handle all the people's problems and point them back to God's law. His problem is not laziness right now.
No.
It has been in the past. His problem is carrying responsibilities God never intended him to carry. And so we think about it as like, how easy is that for us to do? And we think about like, you said it earlier, like exhaustion is not a spiritual gift.
Yeah.
And so
you shouldn't wear that as a badge of honor.
right.
Yeah.
Like we focus so hard on doing for God that we forget to be with God.
Yeah.
And to rest in God and
really
abide. Right. And so we just want to work to look like we're being busy, or just to be faithful. Like I want to be diligent in what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm going. Then I'm exhausted. And it just takes, and the older I get, like I'm realizing that, like it takes longer for my tank to get refilled.
And then you could have some resentment start to build up.
Absolutely. Resentment, bitterness, pride, which leads me to, like, you think about it, like when leadership is not diminished in delegation. And it's so hard for us to think about that. That it's multiplied. Like the issue is, or the question is have we equipped that person to do what I'm doing, to be able to hand that baton off? And then do I trust them to be able to do it?
Yeah.
Because here's the thing. If we're wearing too many hats and we've gone above and beyond what we're expected to go, just like Moses was here, best case scenario is that if you're ignorant. Like he needed his father-in-law to come along who loved him and says, dude, what you're doing is not sustainable. It's not going to work. You're never meant to do this. That's best case. Worst case is it's pride that it makes you think, if you think it makes you look like a harder worker, or you want the glory, or all these other things. Either way, like the leadership that Jesus exemplified and modeled was to give it away.
He modeled it perfectly. You look at that. What did he? His developed in leadership was the Father, and then he had the three.
Yep.
Peter, James, and John that he really trusted in, and they had more in that. Then he had the rest of the disciples, which he did, and then the 72, and the future church leaders. So that is really, like I said, you cannot be discipling with 12 people. You need to have sort of that inner circle. Of course, first of all, you need to be going to the Father.
Yep. You got to go up on a mountain, just like Jesus modeled it. But here's the thing, like he didn't just like have the three around him as yes men, right? Peter, James, and John. They weren't yes men. He had high expectations for them.
Yep.
He apparently even asking them to pray with him in the garden was a high expectation.
Man, that one didn't turn out too well.
But he handed things off. Like he poured into them in order to send them out, and that's the leadership model that he taught, and he modeled it. He lived it, and that's the model that we need to live today. And it's just like a parent. Like a parent, if you as a parent are trying to outdo your kids, then you've missed the point. Mm-hmm. Because I want nothing more than for my kids to outdo me in everything, especially being a follower of Jesus, right? So healthy leadership requires shared responsibility. All right, we got to move quickly here. Number 5 is God's presence at Sinai. We'll shoot through this real quick in Exodus 19. What's happening here?
So he arrives at Mount Sinai because he's going to introduce himself back to the people. As far as they've seen the miracles and everything in the pillar of fire, but he descends in thunder, smoke, fire, and power. And the people are warned, do not come here. And it's later on in those when Moses is going up, do not come up on the mountain. So, and it's the beginning. This is the formal beginning of Israel's covenant identity, and like I said, the God who rescued them. So
showing him his holiness, right?
Show his holiness
and his power.
Yes.
And so here's some questions like why does he seem? He's Abba Father, right? So why does he seem so dangerous here? Why the boundaries? Why the warnings?
Well, because like I said, he is holy and we are not. So that's why it lays out to where when Jesus comes, we will be able to, approach him. But even now, we in our physical bodies now. Think about that now. If he came down on Peaks Knob, I don't think we could go up there because we're redeemed, but we're still not in our. Maybe that's theological debate some other time,
at the best, maybe.
But it's his holiness because.
But it's easy for us to pick one or the other, right?
Yeah.
His love or his truth, his truth or his grace, like his love or his wrath, I guess would be. So God's transcendence, his holiness and his power and his majesty, or his nearness, and so it's both. It's just like Jesus came full of grace and truth, and we're constantly this pendulum overswinging to either one or the other. And we're trying to extend grace.
Jesus always came with grace, didn't he? And then he came with the truth.
Well, depends on who he came to.
Okay, yeah.
So like I use this a lot, and it's kind of like it's just an example that I just see throughout Scripture. It's like when Jesus comes to sinners, tax collectors, the marginalized, the woman caught bleeding, man born blind, woman caught in adultery, woman at the well, Zacchaeus, Matthew, everybody that culture and society pushed to the edges. Jesus, his approach to them was grace. He met the need. He having a conversation with them was extending grace in some ways, healing them physically. You who is without sin, cast the first stone. Like he met their need, and then he would say, "Go and sin no more." So he approached with grace and love, but then he pointed them to truth. Now, when it comes to the Pharisees, the teachers of the law, the scribes, the religious elites of the day who thought they knew truth, woe to you, brood of vipers, whitewashed tomb, like he led with truth because they thought they already knew truth. Yeah. And then if they had an open heart and mind, like a Nicodemus, even though it took some time, I would say like a Jairus, synagogue ruler, he's desperate. There's some situations there where he led with truth, but then he extended grace. So grace is always there for people that are willing to hear it, right? So anyway, like this scene here is like, we tend to minimize holiness, for the sake of his love or grace, and it's the both and so this scene here is showing us that boundaries are important, like to understand when we go before an almighty God, there definitely needs to be a reverence there. Yeah. And if the boundaries aren't punishment, they're protection. It's just like a parent keeping their kid away from the stove, who, when the stove is making the brownies for the kid, kind of, like the kid wants the brownies, but you got to stay away from the stove while it's hot. So true worship requires both intimacy and reverence. And so again, real quick, the connection to Jesus, I just have to point this out, is like at Sinai, there are boundaries, there's distance, there's fear. Through Jesus, it's all taken away. Like access is granted, the veil is torn, right? Reconciliation is possible, relationship restored. And so intimacy with God should deepen our reverence, not eliminate it. And then finally, the Ten Commandments piece, real quick.
This is where he goes up and gives the Ten Commandments, and we're all familiar with those right there. Don't ask me them right now, right off the top of my head. And it's, the debate is, a lot of readers will approach the commandments as rules for earning God's favor, conditions for salvation. And obviously that's not, because it was put in there because we can't keep the law. Yep. And there's one who did keep the law and fulfill the law.
That's a great perspective switch, because redemption comes before the commands. He rescued them out of Egypt before he gave them commands. Grace that's extended to them time and time again for food and for water, for protection, that comes before obedience. And so obedience is not the cause of redemption, it's the response to redemption. Kind of like last week we talked about, worship is the response to an understanding of who God is.
Yeah, when you're redeemed and you have like that, you want to be obedient. You want to go and search on that.
I want to do everything I can to please him.
Exactly.
Because I understand what he's done for me. Yeah. And so really quickly, like this is so critical that we understand this, because we see God's law as like this do's and don'ts, which it is, but that's not the heart of it. No. Like, God doesn't say, obey me and then I'm going to rescue you. He says, I rescued you. Now out of that, here's how my people live. We talked about like the fruit of the Spirit. Paul talks about in Corinthians or Galatians. Like, he doesn't say, hey, go live out love, joy, peace, patience. He just says like, hey, this is the fruit of the Spirit. Like, it's not a bunch of do's and don'ts. It's like, that is the result.
That's the result of
us trying to do everything we can to live according to God's law and will, because of what he's done for us, because
that's what comes out of that, from the obedience.
Yes, it's the overflow. So the law is not a ladder to God's love, it's a response to God's love. And so they're invitations. This law that he gives his people, they're invitations to a different, Jesus would say, the full way of life. And so we don't obey them because it's a checklist. We obey them because of his love for us. And so Jesus comes and he keeps the law perfectly, becomes the perfect sacrifice. And then that is why we love him as Lord and Savior and want to pursue the way of Jesus, to love and live like him. And so obedience is the response to grace. It is the response to grace. It's not the requirement for grace. So we're already at 30 minutes past. So we're not even going to run through our questions. We'll just post them online. We'll just post our questions online. But when our outcomes, we talk about our outcomes of loving and living like Jesus, it's to live surrendered to Jesus, sent on mission for Jesus, and living committed to one another because of Jesus. And so we got some questions for you to chew on and reflect based on these readings. But then also we've kind of reformatted again this week is we've got some challenges or some practices for our rule of life of bold living to begin living out based on these 5 chapters. So that being said, we got to be done here, Tim.
Yes.
I hope you guys have a fantastic week. Enjoy the reading. Let us know if you have any questions along the way. We love you guys.
Yep.